We roll with it. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Yeah, we've been hanging now for a while in different contexts, but a lot more lately. Flow state. Yeah, we're working on capital allocation mechanisms, and specifically, we've been focused on streaming and token-centric streaming via superfluid. There's a history to how we got here, and we probably can go into that later. But basically, on my side, I've just kind of been in the startup technology space my whole career. Entered into Web3 in 2019 after leaving a startup. I'm kind of a generalist. I've just done operations, product, whatever makes the world go round. And entering into crypto in 2019, didn't really know what I was getting into, just knew that there was enough interesting stuff going on and had met enough interesting people that I wanted to do that. I just wanted to be a part of it. And I've been lucky enough through public goods funding, open source funding, been able to sustain myself and just always been working on open source projects. Never had a real job in crypto, and now going on 6 years. So feel very fortunate. And I think that's part of my motivation with Flow State, is to try to make that more accessible to other people. And try to have more people working for the public good, but being able to sustain themselves. Because the world of airdrops and ETH pumping hasn't been the norm. So we have to find other ways to sustain builders doing good work. Yeah, it's really hard to pinpoint just one. I think there's an accumulation. So I think the main one that I would point to as where like it was a trajectory changing sort of moment was I mentioned I started in 2019. It was just kind of like didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to contribute. Started doing like some open source writing for Protocol Labs. They were like a big part of like there were some really cool ideas there, and like not just not just all like smart contracts, but other aspects of Web3 and decentralization. But so entered 2019, started doing some of that, like just kind of doc writing, just random stuff. But ETH Denver 2020, before the pandemic happened, I actually went to a Protocol Labs event in a basement of something just before ETH Denver. I ended up meeting what became my co-founder on a project called the GeoWeb. He was like literally the first person I met when I walked down. He was talking with some guys that like Textile. They were an IPFS ecosystem. They've gone on to do a whole bunch of things, but I still remember like walking in, not knowing anyone, and meeting people that like instantly connected with and had similar ideas, similar values. And I was just like, oh, wow, yeah, I'm glad I'm here. I'm typically not the most outgoing. I'm just kind of like, I don't know, introverted, but like finding your people and connecting that way, and then being able to like, I don't know, just jam on ideas and instantly have like a connection like that. And then when the pandemic lockdown started happening, it's like, oh, I know these people. We can connect online. We can start working on stuff, and it's kind of just run from there. Yeah. We got the cameras on today though, so I don't know, amping up. Yeah. Yeah. So as I was kind of coming into crypto, like as a generalist, not a developer, I kind of just wanted to like sit down. This was before L2s, before like so many things didn't exist at that point. And so I was just kind of like, from first principles, what can these smart contracts, these blockchains do? People are talking about property rights. They're doing all like, and it made sense from it's kind of expensive to transact. You don't need like, you're not trying to do microtransactions. Maybe obviously people have and were, but the angle that I was exploring, I was kind of like, what can we use this for, and what other trends, what other things, kind of like, I don't know, just entrepreneurially sitting down, where are opportunities. And so augmented reality, property rights, these ideas of being able to use a blockchain to coordinate digital property rights. ENS has been that, and it does it in the namespace, right? And I was excited about augmented reality. I've always been a technologist, want to explore these things, and thought that the blend of that seemed like it would be a fit. VR and AR for a long time have been like, oh, that's the next big thing. I think we're still kind of not there yet, and that's maybe how the transition to flow state happened. But GeoWeb basically was a property rights system for augmented reality, so a digital overlay across the globe, and trying to create a fair property rights system. And through this kind of crypto, like the other thing that really attracted me to crypto was how diverse and like how many skills come together and how many different people come together in this space. And so got exposed to radical exchange, Harburger taxes, some of the things that like Vitalik has written about with partial common ownership. And we wanted to apply that to augmented reality. And so we went down that path, built a bunch of different versions of the smart contracts. Like I said, L2s didn't exist. So we were like hyper optimizing like how to define space on chain and doing this weird property rights system. So worked on that for several years, did launch it on Optimism when that L2 came around, and had a really great time, and it's still running. And like you said, that's how we connected. You had an augmented reality interest and background, and continue to kind of, I think we all just hope that eventually we get there. And if that's the next paradigm shift, also hopefully we don't repeat all the same mistakes that we've done with like app stores and centralization vectors. So maybe a little bit of a meandering answer there, but lots of fun stuff that in GeoWeb, meeting awesome people, exploring new fun ideas, and hopefully continue to do that today. Yeah, there's definitely a through line in terms of like, yeah, that public goods mindset. And I think that's the inherent nature, and there's a culture around this. But I think it's comes from some technical capabilities of what you can do with smart contracts. You can be a small team, create something, put it out, and have it serve the world as a public good, and actually have that be sustainable. So that capability leads to the culture that I think Gitcoin, Greenpill, like that we're all attracted to. We actually think we can do these audacious, like globe changing things because of the nature of the technology. You still need to find some other sustainable method to like iterate through to get to that smart contract that the whole world can use. But yeah, like from a fundamental, like kind of technologist perspective and an entrepreneur, like I look at smart contracts, blockchains as providing a step change in terms of the scalability of what a team can do. AWS, amazing step change there years ago, still working through the impact of like how quickly you can go from an idea to a product that serves the world without having to expend a bunch of capital up front. But the through idea is that like GeoWeb was that, flow state is that too. That public goods nature. On a more practical uh, kind of like grounded matter is we built streaming quadratic funding, which is flow state's kind of first streaming allocation mechanism on the GeoWeb. I talked about like we had this harbor tax public goods market, and we were collecting streams of payments for those taxes um, to the protocol treasury. We never felt comfortable. The whole idea behind the GeoWeb was not trying to like become landlords of the world or anything like that, right? Right. But the mechanism actually thought the best way to balance people speculating and like early adopters versus allowing like the real world landowners. I don't know why I put real world in there, but like the real landowners of real world land to be able to adopt later and use these things. And so we were collecting these taxes. We started doing, I think we were the first community to run a Gitcoin grant stack round. And so like funds were coming in, they were pooling up, and then we were running quadratic funding rounds. And we just knew that there was this opportunity on the horizon that if we're streaming it in, why don't we just program it to stream it out? Let's use some of those same concepts of quadratic funding and apply it to streams. And so that idea was another ETH Denver kind of whiteboard session with my co-founder Cody. I think that was in like 2023. And we started talking to Superfluid about it. At that point, I think we had also been like developing more of the relationship and giving feedback to the Grant Stack team, Azim, Khan, and like, hey, have you thought about like doing like streaming quadratic funding, and kind of planted that seed. And as Allo V2 came out, as Superfluid released a tool called GDAs or distribution pools, all these pieces came together in late 2020. I can't remember the years. Late 2023, we connected with the Allo team, protocol team, and started and built out streaming quadratic funding and used it as basically GeoWeb's governance mechanism. It's still up and running. We've just kind of kept, because people are paying those harbor tax fees and they're being immediately streamed out based off of quadratic funding. It's kind of in low power mode. Obviously, we've shifted our focus, but basically that pilot that we built with the Allo team launched on the GeoWeb gave us enough confidence that, hey, there's something here. And as we developed like our mindset and really starting to understand the impact of streams, we thought, hey, this isn't the only, like quadratic funding isn't the end all be all. Streaming quadratic funding isn't the end all be all. We're really excited to use like programmable money streams to allocate funds in different ways. Let's go at that full time under a new brand, a new organization that can be dedicated to that. And that's how we ended up at Flow State. Yeah, there's a really nice, like, I mean, they built a protocol, and has many different uses, and they've built some applications, but they're also super supportive of application builders, and we just happen to be one that came to them. We've been around the ecosystem for a long time. I actually connected with Fran, the CEO of Superfluid, through Harburger taxes, right? Like, everyone's got like these ideas, and there's so many overlapping things. It's just different contexts where it clicks and connects. But yeah, he sent me a DM about he was working on like an EIP, ERC sort of for Harburger taxes, and sent me over the doc, and we started talking, and I was like, well, we're already using Superfluid. And kind of develop from there. And they've been supportive of us, basically like trying to establish, I don't just pushing the envelope in public goods with Superfluid streams. And excited now. There's lots of other builders, and that's awesome. Another person kind of that runs in these circles, Rocket Man. I want to give a shout out to Flows and the awesome stuff that he's done. When we launched Streaming Quadratic Funding, he was one of the first people that reached out. He's like, hey, I've been thinking and working on this other thing. So yeah, now it's a thriving ecosystem. I also saw Sophie on here, connect with her, that her and Sem have built some awesome stuff. So yeah, Superfluid, public goods, it's a match made in heaven, and excited to be building and bringing that to market. Yeah, definitely just like a lot of thinking about, like, we kind of stumbled, like we're following like hunches as we build these things, and some of it is driven just by like, hey, this would be really cool. Like, and I like that's not what, like, I don't know, maybe YC would like Y Combinator would recommend, but like I like being out on the edge and like figuring out new stuff. And like sometimes you just follow a hunch and you start putting some things together, and then you contextualize it and you learn through that process of building. Streaming Quadratic Funding, I legit think that's like one of the coolest things you can do. Like, you can open a donation stream, and that updates the quadratic matching, real-time quadratic matching, to an unlimited number of recipients with a single transaction. You do that atomically. Like, that's really cool. But as we started thinking about, okay, so like, what does that actually mean? How does that actually like do something better? We started with these like vague ideas of like, oh, well, it's more capital efficient. And that's true. Like, the GeoWeb, we were solving a problem. We didn't want to just build up this treasury and then release it. We wanted to get the money out there. If we're going to out-compete people with more money, let's move our money faster and more efficiently. So Streaming Quadratic Funding started checking some of those boxes. But as builders, and maybe even how I kind of started my intro, is like, ultimately, like, we need to find better models for open source builders to be sustainable. I mentioned that I've been very lucky to like came around through Gitcoin, like early Gitcoin grant rounds. Protocol Labs sponsored like a round. We went through like kind of the kernel or Apollo program. I know that's kind of been a mainstay in the space. There were airdrops. There's like all these things that allowed us to just like explore and build and do it for free, like, and not charge. But like, as like bear markets and those things change, felt the need that like we wanted to create more sustainable models for builders to keep building. And Streaming Quadratic Funding, like, cool math, but ultimately as a builder, you don't care about the math. You care about being able to build a budget, to plan ahead, to get user feedback. And obviously, like, without a market mechanism of people paying, you still need feedback, and like you want to build for something that ultimately the market deems valuable. And so we started really framing streaming quadratic funding in those terms. It's like, from a grantee perspective, what does this do? It starts to look maybe more like Patreon, or like a continuous Patreon. And we started exploring other ways and other strategies for streaming that might be easier to adopt, more flexible, and in the ways that streaming quadratic funding isn't. We all know civil resistance is really hard. It's impossible to solve. The idea that people have to open, like, I don't know, just like to understand what's actually going on is just too big of a lift. So we started building tools that are like more like we call flow splitters, which are kind of just like more for like guilds, and instead of external votes, maybe just open a stream to a split that has its own internal mechanisms for deciding who could earn a bigger portion of the pie. And then shout out to Sophie and Sem again. They built these contracts that they called Council House. It was built as a part of Superfluid's Frontier Guild, their approach to kind of incubating and supporting teams in their ecosystem. And we've taken that and made basically a launch pad around that to make it easier with no code to be able to spin these up and have more people be able to use them. So Flow Councils is a direct voting on stream allocation. And so, yeah, we've just kind of continually explored this idea from the grantee. We want grantees to receive streams because that gives them kind of like a SaaS model of business. Be able to plan ahead a lifetime value of like earning someone's donation, and being able to scale and sustain themselves a little bit more predictably rather than kind of the quarterly or grant by grant basis. Yeah, and just like obviously like Gitcoin and quadratic funding is been so innovative, and but none of these tools are the end all be all, or any format is not going to like be perfect. We want a plethora of options. But I use the analogy of like SaaS, and like we see it in like traditional nonprofits, right? They get big donations and one-time donations, but their goal is to get you donating on a reoccurring basis. Modern software isn't sold as you buy it up front and then like you come back 2 years later and buy a new one. It's subscription models. And there's so many reasons for that. And ultimately, I think it's like one of the most powerful is the incentive alignment with like a SaaS model. It takes it takes a lot to sell, whether like no matter what, especially in the world today with like how I don't know. There's just so many options. There's so many like social media. Like there's too many distractions, and like owning distribution is like how Facebook makes money, right? They own our attention, and there's other parts of the internet that are basically repeat that. And so like as SaaS models have learned, it's like you sell it up front, or you like get them to commit, and then on an ongoing basis, they continue to pay you with the implicit or explicit understanding that you're going to, one, maintain the platform, two, improve the platform. And so you look and end up like seeing your monthly SaaS subscription, you get more value over time for that. Whereas when you buy a packaged software, you buy it once, it is what it is, right? And basically you just hope that they continue to support it, or at least that's how it was back in the day. And I think public goods and like open source software, a one-time donation is kind of like throwing $1 in and getting 60x on QF. Like, yeah, people will do that. And the novelty of that like drove a lot of attention early. But when you do these over and over and over, you're asking the same people, you're going in their DMs, you're sending out Twitter into the ether, you're blasting out emails saying, can you just give us $1? Can you just give us $1? And there's so much friction for that $1 that, yeah, maybe you get 60x, but if everyone else is doing it, the matching multipliers won't end up there in the end. And so I think just like the sales process with like periodic funding rounds, crowdfunding rounds, ends up like it doesn't end up being efficient. It's not worth the squeeze. And ultimately, people end up making decisions based off of maybe other factors rather than actual value that they're getting from that open source builder. I think we can change that mental model with a stream, because you're maintaining that stream. And if that builder stops producing value such that you think you're not seeing the return, they're not creating products or uses that create value for you or your organization, you're going to turn off the stream. I think that's healthy. And so, yeah, those are ultimately where we're trying to drive to. Yeah, we're working on branding. Who knows? Yeah, like trying different things, but yeah. Do it right now. Can't forget. I have a lot being minted. Yeah, flow guilds. Yeah, we can do it because we launched one for Greenpill Dev Guild, right? And so yeah, like I said, we're still kind of working on the branding there. And the difference is, so Flow Splitters was kind of just a simple iteration on what Superfluid's primitive of a many to many stream split. A way to manage that, a way to do access control around it is what Flow Splitters is. And we create a launch pad for that. There's a lot of cool things you can do with transferability of those units in the Flow Splitter, but it was pretty bare bones. And we just wanted to put it out there. We did that. We started using it for ourselves to split our team's income that we were getting from streaming donations. But it was totally just passed through. And as we started talking to other people, we wanted to, obviously we're trying to build these tools for, we dog fooded ourselves. We're trying to sustain ourselves with streaming funding, but we also need to expose that to other people. And at maybe even more mature like groups like Greenpill Dev Guild, you have different safes, you have different uses of funds, you have like a reserve, you're trying to build up some sustainable funds. Flow Splitters wasn't optimized for that. It had maybe one Lego piece, and it was this many-to-many stream split. Flow Guilds is kind of like the next evolution of that, where we're adding a few more Lego pieces. And I can, maybe I'll do screen share kind of to show what's out there, give some context. Let's do this window. So yeah, the Flow Splitter is basically just this thing that's splitting out a bunch of streaming funds to different addresses and doing that in a really clever kind of on-chain way that Superfluid did. But these Flow Splitters are they're token specific. They don't yet support like multiple token streams, all with the same registry, and they don't have like a native way to like say, hey, we don't want to stream everything out there. Like we want to build up a reserve. So the simple next Lego block was to meet people where they're at. People have multi-sig safes. And so just adding the ability to integrate a safe plus a flow splitter and have the ability to change between different tokens, networks, and open donation streams is where Flow Guilds has gone. So we launched this just yesterday, actually, and Greenpill now has 6 active donors. It looks like almost an average of $10 a month per going in, and then is going into the Greenpill treasury, and then the Greenpill treasury has a small stream going out to a bunch of different projects, other safes, working capital, different kind of treasury management things. And so really excited, appreciate you guys taking the leap. And I believe we're going to be working on other tools. Like we build all this stuff open source. We're all aligned. We're working on these different things, and it's good to get in the arena together and see where it goes. Yeah, happy to have launched this yesterday. There's lots of exciting things. One of the great things about Superfluid is that they've been green-pilled. They are big supporters of what we're doing, and the ideas of getting income streams to builders is a really good way for them to spread their protocol and to grow. And so we've been lucky enough they launched their SUP or SOUP token last quarter and gave us a big allocation to be able to basically incentivize donations and be able to. So if someone opens a donation stream, they can go to the Superfluid Claim app and claim a return stream of SUP. So basically, like incentivize, give a rebate on donations, and do it in a way that doesn't like violate any sort of fairness, right? We very explicitly want more people to give more money to Greenpill and get rewarded for that. And Superfluid is on board with that. They've labeled the program Streaming Programmable Rewards. There's a lot of different apps and good, cool things going on in the Superfluid ecosystem. So this is just one of the ways you can earn. But yeah, basically it's donate to earn. And so any round launched on Flow State in this next quarter will have the ability to get incentivized with SUP. And so we turned that on today. So if you open a donation stream to Greenpill, make sure to go to claim.superfluid.org. Basically, it's $1 donated equals 1 point. And as more points get accumulated, your stream can grow. But as other people donate more, obviously, like your stream can also go down. So make sure to keep your streams open and continually grow them. Basically, the only requirement is stream $1 worth of any token, and you'll start earning SUP rewards. Nah, but yeah, I'm donating a lot. I'm donating. Also, I'll give a shout out to Giveth, right? Like Giveth also has that. They've obviously, it's a big legacy platform. They have a lot of stuff, other stuff going on. They've always been like, I think the difference between them and Gitcoin is they're always on, right? They came from a place not of quadratic funding, but giving a place for people to go donate. And it was in a transactional way, but they've added streaming donations. And so there's a lot of great projects out there. You can go open a stream to them on Giveth and start earning sup rewards, just like you can on Flow State. And so, yeah, like I try to put my money where my mouth is. I'm trying to earn as much sup. I'm bullish on Superfluid. I also love the idea that I can donate to my friends and people doing great work and get a rebate on it. So it's a win-win. And yeah, so yeah, also, yeah, anytime you Google anything that's related to a token claim, or make sure you're getting to the right place. People will put ads, and I've heard that people were, nefariously buying the Google AdWords for like Superfluid and all that sort of stuff. So make sure you're on superfluid.org. But yeah, so those, I'd say, just to touch more on like Giveth is opening donation streams and very simply onboarding lots of people to that. Where we're trying to push, and where I think our opportunity for FlowState as a small organization, like we can be a little bit more nimble and push the envelope. So what we're trying to do here with like Flow Guilds is show donors that you're not just streaming to this endpoint that has no additional transparency. We want people, the donors, to be able to see where their money is going. And call back to flows and what Rocket Man has built. Streams can go multiple levels, right? And so you can end up seeing these flows, these networks of value flow. And I think that gives extra confidence and a little bit more of a push for, hopefully, for donors to support. So it's not so faceless. We want like streams to be like relational, and that you understand where your money is going, because then you'll give more of it, because you see like impact with your action. Yeah, I think we're kind of an expansive part of our roadmap. We were building all these new products, basically SQF. Then we have Flow Splitters, Flow Guilds, and Flow Councils. I think now now we can stop the expansion and really start to refine those, and obviously still building and adding features to those, but doing it in a way that's more refined. I think we really need to like push towards making it easier for onboarding. I think there's some regulatory and like supporting like on and off ramp KYC stuff that's opening up a little bit, that we can expand the market of donors that use crypto to donate to these things. And so that's where I think we're going to be focused. With the changes at Allo and like Gitcoin, like there's probably we're going to have to do some work in changing our implementation of SQF to not rely on some of the infrastructure around Allo. So there's probably going to be some cleanup there, but I think it aligns with some other kind of opportunities that are happening. We've been working with Octant, and just from a perspective of this might end up taking it into another direction, but Octant is a great, like, I think most people here know Octant and what they've done for the space, and the model that they introduced with taking their 100,000 ETH, staking it, and creating this endowment or perpetual on-chain trust, and using the yield to fund public goods. And as soon as we heard about that and we got an intro and started talking with Octant, we just said, hey, we think streaming is a really good fit for that. Like we had perpetual, it was very variable, but it was perpetual with the GeoWeb. And part of why we built that, it was like, get that money out there as soon as possible. to make the impact. And I think that applies with like yield generation in the Octant model. And so we've been just talking with them, and I think there's going to be opportunities for other builders to integrate with Octant V2. More to come on that, but that's going to be a big part of our roadmap is taking what we've already built and adapting it to this new model and new opportunity, while staying hopefully engaged in other areas as Allo develops or BG24 and all that kind of space settles. Yeah, and hopefully, I said we started streaming quadratic funding maybe as like an intellectual, just kind of like hunch. Now it's like we need to focus on getting it into the hands of users, and so that requires some dev work. We definitely need to work on our marketing and distribution, and that's maybe where I talk to you about like, hey, there's some different ideas of like just like simple things to help with distribution, like the open graph, like share messages and being able to show like this sort of graph in something like that. Farcasters, obviously, like at this point, they have their ups and downs, but right now it seems like there's a lot of excitement going on there with like mini apps. There could be things there that like meet people where they're at and expand the market of people that are donating and using these tools. So yeah. Yeah, it really just like I think we've always been open to like sharing ideas and collaborating and just like trying to create positive sum opportunities for everyone. And so it really just started like that. Basically saying, hey, we think Superfluid's a good fit for this on-chain perpetual trust. Started those conversations sometime last year, and have just they've been supporters. They funded a streaming quadratic funding round last year as a part of their accelerator. They launched that accelerator and said like, hey, this is a focus, like the focus of this accelerator is sustainability for builders. And that was a trigger word for us. And so I just reached out and said, hey, would you want to run a streaming quadratic funding round for like your builders? I know you're going to be doing a whole lot of other coaching, mentoring, like very intense like development, both like on the business side and technical side as a part of this. And they said, yeah, we're in. And so that's where like it just, we're aligned, and there's a lot of these ideas, and they're like we come with complementary skills and ideas, and basically it's just developed from there. And so as their V2 protocol has become more of like a public and like known thing that they're working on, we proposed, hey, like we'd love to integrate streaming quadratic funding to that. They said, yes, absolutely. We'd like to work with you. You guys know it better than anyone. Like, can you help us kind of, as you're integrating streaming quadratic funding, can you help us identify how to best improve their DevRel experience and DevX, and then naturally point that outward. We've been hanging around. There's other mechanism builders that like we've been in the trenches building this stuff, and naturally like we would love to create more opportunities for everyone else to come over to the Octant and utilize their idea, like in like the leap of faith they took by taking 100,000 ETH, which not everyone has that opportunity. It's obviously a unique kind of tendency to get there, but it's just a super cool opportunity, and it just fits on so many levels for people like us that are building these sorts of tools. Yeah, I will say flow state, the name, the focus is about basically streaming allocation. right? Like, and so that is what we've been working on and what we want to do more of. We've structured as a co-op, and the idea behind the co-op is that we are able to create a place for people building streaming allocation mechanisms, not just us, the co-founders and kind of the initial people that summoned the co-op, can figure out ways to collectively create enough gravity, both for distribution of products, for sharing of resources, for sharing of ideas, and ultimately, like, that's what flow state the organization hopefully evolves to be. We've like, there's a lot of really cool things you can do with co-ops and tokens and revenue sharing and keep it on the up and up from a securities perspective, but we haven't gone there. Basically, we don't want to just launch a token to launch a token. And it's like, once you introduce these financial incentives and they become legible on chain, it changes things. So we wanted to like make sure that we had some product traction. We figured this stuff out, but then we can develop that. And I hope we can do that with, like, on a collaborative, like, design this co-op. Co-ops are meant to be collaboratively designed, governed from like the very start. So with a small team of initial founders, we didn't have enough perspectives to be able to do it. So we want to organically grow that. And so as like we roll out these funding rounds, as we work with Greenpill Dev Guild to build tools and integrate these ideas, then naturally those become, well, how can we like structure that within the co-op to revenue share, to do these things? And so those are high level ideas that aren't like, we don't have a clear path, but we want to do that with people like you all, with other builders, and hopefully reduce the friction and make this a thing enough that like streaming allocation becomes like kind of the place to be, and that there's lots of ideas and dynamic things happening. So that's where we want to go at the organizational level, and hopefully other people will join us on that journey. Yeah, basically on the website. The website's going to actually, there'll be a new website launching here soon, some brand refresh. But right now it's just, yeah, just a Google form. Just give us a shout if you're interested in these sorts of things, and we can just start the conversation. There is not a established path for becoming a co-op member. But like I said, we want to co-build that with the people that want to become members. So the first step, just drop us your information. We're already talking here, so if it's like a organizational level alliance between Greenpill, Dev Guild, and Flow State, or individuals, we want all that to be fluid. And so the one thing I'll say about co-ops, there's a lot of flexibility. It's multi-stakeholder, so you can have organizational members, you can have individual members, you can have individual members and organizational members that have different roles in different ways that they contribute value to the co-op. And so it's really just like the perfect legal framework to do what a lot of DAOs wanted to do on chain, and do it in a way that can be like, I don't know. You don't have to do like governance, valueless governance tokens that a lot of people have struggled then reconciling. If I'm getting paid in this valueless governance token, like how, like I have to dump it to pay my bills. Like there's just like some challenges there that I think co-ops could potentially provide a good foundation for. Yeah, ultimately, like there's I'm pretty conservative when it comes to like any sort of like legal things on my end, but I do want to push the envelope in terms of like innovating and doing what is possible. So hopefully we get some relief on like just kind of the general negativity and just like enforcement after the fact, where you think you're doing something by the book, but you're not. But I do think co-ops already have a pretty long history of doing these things. That just because you introduce a blockchain or smart contracts to how you operate a co-op doesn't automatically make it a security, right? Like the co-ops are about like multi-stakeholder contribution of value in lots of different forms, and not having that be securitized, because you're part of the co-op, you're part of the managerial efforts in some ways. And so that's kind of I think the legal theory behind it. But there's still work to be done there too, to like Colorado co-ops are like a state level thing, not a federal thing. So yeah, we there's some legal innovation that still needs to happen, or at least kind of validation. Yeah, I'm going to drop a white paper quick in the chat. So shout out to Eat Denver and Opolis, and they're like they blaze this trail. We just are looking to apply these ideas in a different way. So like Eat Denver is, I don't know what the membership is. Basically, if you got a free ticket to Eat Denver, is because you joined the co-op, and they send out tokens. They send out their Spork token and dividends to Spork token stakers as through this co-op. So if you've been going to Eat Denver for a while, you might have had some Spork, and if you staked it, they actually sent out like USDC dividends to people, to co-op members. And we're doing that at a scale that's much larger than what we're doing. And what our idea is, and where we got excited about the co-op, is the idea that we could potentially like incentivize donations, and like it's almost like yeah, we're incentivizing donations with sub tokens, but we can incentivize donations through the co-op structure and send out dividends to people that funded public goods that went out and made an impact and returned value to the co-op. Yeah, I've mentioned a couple where it definitely like Flows and Rocket Man and what he's done. I'd say, and then Sophie and Sem out there, Blossom Labs doing awesome stuff. So there's kind of this small cohort of people that have been doing streaming allocation and doing that in public goods and in DAO contexts. And so definitely collaborating with them and hopefully creating more opportunities, mutual opportunities for all of us. But then, yeah, introduce these streaming mechanisms to other places. We mentioned Octant, but then like Gardens, our good friends, and what they've done, and like Sem also, like Small World again, all the overlaps, built like a version of conviction voting that had streams in it. And now the opportunity is to like revisit that with some new infrastructure and new ideas and lessons learned. And so I would also love to see like streaming cookie jars, or like streaming, I don't know, Yeeter. I don't know what a streaming Yeeter would look like. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so like, yeah, we want to get streams everywhere, but then also understand that, yeah, there's time and place where streams aren't the best, and totally know that. We're just trying to like our go to market is to become the stream people, right? Like it's one thing, and like be have like some conviction on that, so that you can push it as far forward as you can. So obviously we want to work with any and all people that they're building for the public good. and exploring these mechanisms. Hopefully, like I said, with Octant and creating the opportunities around that and access to capital for allocation mechanism builders, there's going to be a whole lot of excitement and I think opportunity there. And would just love to connect with it. Anyone who's got an idea, I'm always down to hop on a call. We have the Greenpill happy hours. That's a good space to just kind of drop ideas and see where it goes. Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you for letting me ramble for an hour. It went fast for me, but it was a lot of fun. And yeah, it's just awesome to like. There's so much like overlap. I've brought up a lot of the same names. We've hung out before, and so we just need to keep at it and more opportunities. I think the time is coming. There's obviously a lot of uncertainty with like Gitcoin and like we're all on a winding path, but I think there's a lot of opportunities in the coming years for us to make a big impact and yeah, have a lot of fun.